Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Listen, I want to read an excerpt from a story that was written in January, the 3rd of January to be precise. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi has assured that the prices of key food commodities, which include unga and rice, will come down in the month of February. With escalating food prices and high cost of living due to the removal of subsidies in food commodities, Linturi said plans are in place to change the current situation that has caused uproar among Kenyans. He said, "We are going to import maize and rice, and we are not doing it because we want. The projections are so bad that if we don't do it, our people will die for lack of food. By the end of February, the price of unga and rice will have come down." Okay? He said the Kenya Kwanza government is banking on food production across the country as a viable solution to changing the current scenario. That was last month. Mm-hmm. We are now in February. Okay? This is the month by which, in about a few weeks' time, the price of unga should be coming down.
Yep.
And rice should be available, okay, at affordable prices. This is just one aspect. Other aspects of distribution of fertilizer. If you just go to Google and Google Linturi distribution fertilizer, you will see. Or just Ruto distribution. You start with Linturi February fertilizer. Google that. Linturi February fertilizer and see. They have said February they were working on mapping out all the farmers, creating a system where it's going to be a proper receipting system that is just digital. Hakuna yo?
In Eco, don't worry.
You have to do the robot. So the robot is asking you to prove that you're a human.
I don't look human.
Yeah? They said they were working on, creating a database of farmers so that we know which farmers and what their needs are. So when the subsidized fertilizer arrives, it goes straight to the farmer. And in fact, we even remove that whole cost of saying the farmer is going to collect the fertilizer at NCPB. Mm-hmm. The farmer is going to get the fertilizer at the local agrovet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At this subsidized. And the receipting system is going to be digitized. So when you want to receive, you do something on your phone, and it shows Ndu has received 3 bags of fertilizer because she needed 3 bags of fertilizer.
Thank you very much.
That is the conversation that we should be having in February, because long rains in this country begin in March. Towards end of February into March, long rains, okay? Mm-hmm. So farmers should be having that. This thing called the Financial Inclusion Fund, the Huduma, no, not Huduma, it's called the Hustler Fund. The Hustler Fund was rolled out in December. And that was just the personal loans. And people have been borrowing, and we've been getting updates from the Ministry of MSMEs and Cooperatives and all about the billions of shillings that have been disbursed in loans, the billions of shillings that have been repaid, the millions of borrowers who have actually become repeat borrowers. Okay? Hiyo mambo yote. You are searching what? Fertilizer February? Good. Hiyo mambo yote. Wacha ifungue uniambie. In February, they are to launch the second aspect of the Hustler Fund, which is the main part, which is to support small and micro businesses. So where businesses can come and borrow to the tune of 50,000 shillings and above.
Yes,
you know. So then they can get working capital for their businesses to operate. That's a conversation that should be taking place when? This month.
Yes.
The president directed the Ministry of the National Treasury and Economic Planning to come up with a supplementary budget and cut expenditure by 300 billion shillings. Yesterday, the president chaired a cabinet meeting, and the dispatch from the cabinet was saying that they have looked at the supplementary budget now, and it reflects this 300 billion shilling budget cut to cut our quote according to our size. Yes. These are the conversations that should be taking place now. That would be taking place. Were it not for the fact that we have been diverted by
taxes,
drama,
Jacaranda,
taxes, Chibukati, bombers, who visited, who did what, wanted to kidnap the other, wanted to
kill another one,
kill.
What you're discussing gets to the heart of this particular matter.
Yes.
And when you have regions of the country that previously were considered a breadbasket, you talk about Nyeri, you talk about Meru, you talk about Tharaka-Nithi, where people are now receiving food aid due to crop failure.
Yes.
Okay? And then you hear conversations where we are being told, farmers in the Mount Kenya region are saying, no, we don't want fertilizer, we want water. It's water that we need. Now, if it isn't raining, surely we have heard, we know, we've been told, we've even seen that some people dig somewhere in the ground and water comes up.
Yeah.
So, is it possible for the government to consider...
Come and dig our ground.
Yes. Yes.
These things that are said, the question is, are they informed? Because one would hope that when you make a public proclamation about something, that it is fueled by information and data, n'est-ce pas?
Yes.
Okay. On the 4th of January, this is what you were alluding to earlier, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Lunturi assured, not suggested, not said perhaps maybe, assured that the prices of key food commodities, which include unga and rice, will come down in the month of February, which is what now? Where we are?
Today is the 1st of February.
Very good.
Uh-huh.
Key food commodities, unga, rice, the prices will come down.
This month.
Assured.
Yes.
Again, not a suggestion, not an if, but, or maybe. Assurance. Okay? Food prices gone high. Cost of living through the roof due to the removal of subsidies in food commodities, but also that the economy had taken a hit. We know this. He said that plans are in place to change the current situation that has caused an uproar among Kenyans. Now, you must understand, the uproar is not the issue. The truth of the matter is that life has gotten more expensive, which then led to the uproar. Okay? He said, number one, we are going to import maize, lest we forget, and we are not doing it because we want. Can I say that again?
Yes.
We are going to import maize and rice, and we are not doing it because we want to, as in the situation has forced us to.
When did he say this?
On the 4th of January.
We are going to import.
On the 4th of January this year, 2023.
Yeah, they're opening the import window.
Yeah. The projections are so bad that if we don't do it, our people will do what? They will die.
Yes.
By the end of February, okay, so there's still some 27 days, the price of unga and rice will have come down. So, Eric, was still window possibility.
Yeah.
The Agriculture Cabinet Secretary mentioned that the KK government was banking on food production across the country as a viable solution to change the current scenario. The droplets of rain that we talk about coming in the month of March is what would now give rise to this food production across the country, not importation of food, because we know that Kenya is a net importer of food today.
It is.
It is. All right?
It is.
But now what he's saying is that we want to ensure that there's food production. One of the ways to do that is to make sure that your inputs are what? Low. And to make sure that you have managed the natural conditions such as rain and stuff to be able to facilitate this. So the lowering of the cost of fertilizer to make it possible for farmers to be able to do their thing. What do the millers need? So if you're saying that there will be adequate food production across board, that means that's what I started by saying, we hope that such public proclamations have been fueled by data and information. Will it actually be possible to have food production across board in 1 month in Kenya?
Well,
Are you seeing
the thing is, it's a rainy season, it's a planting season.
Yes.
Okay? The whole idea here is there are two things. There is importation of the food, so the millers can get that cheap maize.
Yes.
So then they can bring the unga to us at a cheaper price.
Yes.
All right? That is one. There is the second one that is the short term. The medium term is this rainy season. Let us support our farmers so that our farmers are able to actually produce food in abundance and cheaply. And that is where the conversation about fertilizers comes in.
Yes.
When the president was meeting with his government in Fairmont, Mount Kenya last month, he talked about why they were registering farmers, because they've been registering farmers. That's what they say.
Yeah.
They've been registering farmers across the country to know the need. So we know the farmers, we know where you are, and we have identified stockists. So we also know X number of farmers will get their fertilizer from stockist A. You will go to stockist A, you will use technology this time. Mambo ya ukora ya chief, forget it. Go with your, get your fertilizer from there, 3,500, go plant. Now, this was ahead of the rainy season. The rainy season begins later this month into March. So by now, farmers should be identified. Farmers should actually be getting the conversation of, this is a fertilizer that you're getting.
Yeah.
There's still the issue of the farmer extension services. In some parts of the North Rift, the conversation has been acidic soils. So what are we going to do to deal with the acidic soils so that then we can get better yields? That was also part of the conversation. All these things are what we should be getting and hearing today. That's what we should be discussing. So we can look at, okay, in 1 year, the way the president said, give me 1 year, I'm going to sort this out. So by the time these farmers are harvesting the maize next year, we'll have a bumper harvest. So our maize millers will not need to import.
And Kenya's barns will be full.
We will have a bumper harvest. We will have cheap unga. Sorted, we can see the journey. We are not hearing that conversation. And that's why we want to open the phone line. So if you are actually listening to us from the breadbasket of the country and you have been registered and you have been told when you're receiving your fertilizer, can we hear?
Tell us, please.
Please tell us. Because lest we forget, these are the conversations that this country should be having today. If you have an issue with anybody who is not paying tax, go for them. There's a legally constituted revenue authority. Let it do its job. There are laws. There's a revenue tribunal. There are courts. Deal with them. If you feel that there's a new evidence that you come up with that shows that you won the election, deal with the proper channels. These concerts on Sundays are distracting us.
You know, there's a disconnect somewhere in this conversation about the needs that we have in the country that have been brought about by the prolonged drought and, of course, the effect of the war in Ukraine. There's that.
Okay,
Yes. And then there's inflation. And then hot on the heels of this, of course, there was COVID, which hasn't really gone anywhere. It's just become a friendly pet that we live with. And you know, we
every now and then we can throw some shade on.
There's an MOU that we have with it. What I find disconcerting about what I'm calling a disconnect is this. I understand the need to import foodstuffs to ensure that we don't have a shortage. What I don't understand is how a government that has been put in place to look after the welfare of the people has actions that seem to not just contradict but unfairly compete with their own citizens who are farmers. If you bring in duty-free maize, duty-free, is it not bound to be cheaper than the maize that is produced locally?
Yes, no.
Okay. So what then will you do? Because you're talking about cheap fertilizer because the fertilizer that was on the market was clearly not cheap. Otherwise, you wouldn't be referring to cheap fertilizer. Cheap fertilizer. Cheap fertilizer. You know what I mean? Yes. Now, what are the farmers supposed to do with this maize that they have produced? I am thinking, should the conversation not have been that whatever was produced,
we mop it up?
Yeah, or it has been mopped up.
Buy it.
And we have paid a premium for it so that our farmers are able to plant for the next season. And the idea is so that we can avert a situation where we need to import again. Is that have I got this conversation wrong, or is this what we ought not to be having?
You're right.
But it's not what we are having. No. And you're talking about rice. You're talking about maize. I am absolutely certain that other cereals have also been imported.
Yes.
We are never, in this country, you are never really told the full story. And even these quantities that they are speaking of and saying, well, 10 million bags. Who's counting?
Who stood there and said, 1, 2. Wait. Hey, come back.
Rudy.
Put them back in. Let's just start again.
45, 46.
Mimi nimechoka shift yako inaanza. Who? No, truth, and we can laugh about it, but it's actually serious. We can throw some numbers out there and say, okay, but who's actually making sure that these things are actually happening? And that short term, medium term, long term, in terms of what you want to do, is crucial to getting this country out of this thing. That we understand that there are short-term measures that need to be taken because, he's right. The CS is right. If we don't feed Kenya today, people will die. That's the truth of the matter. That there needs to be short-term interventions to make sure people are taken care of. That is true. The rains are coming. People need to plant. You need to make sure fertilizer is then available. That is medium term, okay? Because after a year, you can't really call a year long term in terms of planning for things like this. You really cannot. Now, thereafter, what is going to be done to make sure that this current situation is avoided in the future? And that has always been my thing. Look, you don't have to do a lot to figure it out. Where Kenya is geographically placed, that means that these issues of drought that are being faced in 2021, 2022, they will do their cycle and it will continue to be. The rains will come, things will be lush and green for a very short period of time. Then you will get back into the situation where you'll be faced by drought. This is what we're talking about today. What are you doing to make sure that your barns will be full in the medium term so that it allows your long-term plans to kick in? It cannot be that a country that is developing like this is still dealing with issues of food on its staple. We're not talking about luxury things like cheese and butter and yogurt. On its staple food, the measures to guarantee that it is available to the population all the time have not been put in place. That's a problem. It is a problem. The short term is, before we even talk about medium and long term, the short term does not seem to be working. So how about some attention actually be put and work actually be done to make sure it happens? And this is one thing that you can do right now, because everybody throws their hands up and say, what can we do? Cherargei sat in this chair last year and told us, the month he mentioned was February. February will harvest. There's maize. Okay, why are you not buying the maize from these farmers today? Why must we import maize? And we're talking about farmer protectionism. Why must you import maize? And farmers have planted. Why will you not buy it from them? The big C word is just hanging around there. Cartels. So which is more important? To feed your pocket or to feed your people?
You know, there's this conversation that Kenyans have with themselves about how biggest economy in East Africa, ahead of everybody in East Africa. Why don't we just pause for a second and look at the facts? These countries that we are better than in East Africa, we know we import food from them.
They are food secure, we are not.
Yes, we are not. We are better than them in East Africa. We are better industrialized in East Africa. In Tanzania,
They can feed the people.
yes, they can feed the people. In Tanzania, they are building a mega hydroelectric dam. It's called Julius Nyerere. The mega kilo voltage watts that will be produced in that particular dam will be the largest on this continent. Over 2,100, I think, and 11, however you measure electricity in terms of the turbo power. Okay? What am I saying? I am saying we are busy running the country with words. We are busy managing our government with words. We are busy governing with words. And our neighbors are actually doing things. They are actually industrializing as we watch. They are actually ensuring that they are food secure. They are actually ensuring that the very things that we are talking about continuously, that they are actually doing. Okay? And every time we talk about helping the Mwananchi and solving the problem, the stark reality is that as we talk about solving the problem, what you see being done doesn't solve the problem. It creates a bigger problem. How do you talk about wanting to industrialize, and how do you talk about wanting to be a first world country? Where in first world countries, governments support farmers. They even pay farmers not to produce certain things to avoid a glut. They pay them. And if they don't pay them, they buy. I mean, that is called protectionism.
What's the role of the NCPB?
This thing that we're discussing here, that's really what they're supposed to do. But usually they need a budget, which they must be given in order to enable them to be able to purchase.
Okay.
Price stabilization and such and such and such.
It's like EPRA.
There's, for the longest time, they will say, oh, well, there's no food in the barn, so therefore the work of the NCPB is finished. Until there's, cereals readily available, that's when we can talk about then your role. Actually, no. That it is at this time when we're talking about these things that you must be working in tandem. And I'm telling you, so long as you will not develop further beyond having the ability to feed your people. And I think that's the nitty-gritty of it here. We cannot be talking about some grand and lofty castles in the sky that are being built when your people are hungry. You can't. And if you have a board that has been instituted to make sure that you take care of some of these things, working hand in hand with the parent body, which is the Ministry of Agriculture, however you want to look at it, if you cannot deal with the basic rudimentary issue of feeding your people,
the rest are stories.
You know, you have this story of the number of dams you want to build. Remember I mentioned this?
Yes. Tell us about those dams, by the way. Where are they?
All right.
When are they going to be built?
Let me just count
in 6
for you.
months, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
263
The mic,
dams.
tafadhali.
263. And there's talk about the revival of the Kimwarer and Aror dams.
Okay.
Okay. These dams, my friend, plant dams all over the country. All over the country. Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, Tana River, Lamu, Taita Taveta, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Isiolo, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Embu, Kitui, Machakos, Makueni, Nyandarua, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Murang'a, Kiambu, Turkana, West Pokot, Samburu, Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Baringo, Laikipia, Nakuru, Narok, Kajiado, Kericho, Bomet, Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia, Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii, Nyamira, even Nairobi.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yes.
2 dams per county.
It is a good thing. The point here is this. What's the low-hanging fruit that we need to look at in terms of ensuring that we are food secure? The dams are built for a purpose. Okay? Now, build the dams by all means. But dams can't be built in a week or a month.
Really?
No, you can't. They take a very, very long time. In a country that doesn't have money, there is money to build dams. What do we need right now?
Food.
Yes. Again, what else do we need? Security. Because every time you look at the papers, I was looking at the article about maize in the North Rift. The next story next to it, banditry in Turkana. 10,000 people have left their homes because bandits are roaming freely.
Yes, no. It's not the other day when CS had just left where, and then people they sent a smoke signal to say, excuse me. Thank you very much for what you just said. But we can see you. We are also showing you that we are here.
Yes.
So don't just be talking anyhow. That's it. What do you need? What can you do now?
Or at least walk the journey with the people, all right? So if this conversation was taking place and saying, all right, we're going to begin with this number of dams. Why? Because these dams, they're going to be fed by these rivers and we expect rainfall. Met has told us this long rainy season, there's going to be rain in these areas. Those areas are going to feed these rivers. For example, River Aroro, or is it River Kimwarer? Those rivers in Elgeyo Marakwet.
Yes.
It is going to rain in that region.
It will.
Those rivers will have water. Okay? So if we are talking about, so this Elgeyo Marakwet County, it's rich. It can grow anything. There's coffee, there's mangoes, if we had these dams ready, would get into this level of food production. If we go into this other area, if we had these dams ready, would get into this level of food production. In the next 3 years, we will not be depending on rainfall patterns. We'll be depending on
the dam
just using the dams. In the meantime, this is what we are doing. This is a conversation that we are not having. And that's why I'm livid with the political leadership. All of them, I said. From the president to the opposition leader to the leaders of the National Assembly, both majority, minority, all of them, including Martha Karua. This conversation is what we should be having. You putting the government in check and saying, these are the timelines you gave us. Where are we?
Yep.
Where are we heading? You want to come to us with a proposed budget of 3.6 trillion shillings. What are the priority areas in our country today? How are we able to finance what we currently have? We have people, millions of people who are hungry today. How are we feeding those people? If the Jacaranda rally was a fundraiser where people went and they kill them to shilingi kumi, and we left that Jacaranda rally saying we have contributed 2 million shillings that can go towards
buying
unga for people who are starving, we'll be having a conversation. We are not having those conversations. It's as if the 2 million or so, 4 million people who are hungry in Kenya, see ninja too.
Just be hungry.
It's just ninja peke yake. That's not a big issue. The big issue is Chibukati. No. we are losing it. And I think we are being managed. We are being managed by those political leaders working in concert, sitting somewhere in a room and discussing and saying, wait, Raila, you know, if these people remember that it's February, that rains are going to come, that I don't have fertilizer, that farmers are not getting the fertilizer, if they remember that the maize that is coming is going to take a while before the unga price comes down, if these people remember that there are Kenyans who are dying because of hunger, if they remember that there are parts of this country where people are being killed, and I promise that this is going to end immediately. If they remember, it's going to be worse. So can you just distract them? Hold those concerts on Sundays. Hold the political rallies. Now me, I'll be chairing you. You say, I'm going to have my next rally on Sunday, and I say, tunakuonea 18 wewe chambo yako wewe. Hii unataka, watu wengine wanataka tu wapewe serikali. Hakuna upati, haupati serikali.
Then we talk about it for 24 hours.
We distract them with this conversation back and forth. They forget. Because if they remember, they will take themselves to Jacaranda, and it will be a big issue. So you take them to Jacaranda, manage them, let them go home at the end of Sunday. This is, I think, what is happening. This whole talk of tax, there are people who are not paying tax. There are people who wanted to kill Chebukati.
And those people who are not paying tax, then are wanting to make sure that people go to Jacaranda.
Yeah, they're the ones who are sponsoring Jacaranda.
No.
This is hogwash. Absolute BS.
It's important that the government has plans. It's important that the government demonstrates that it has a focus on development. All that is important. But that has to be against a backdrop of certain immediate and current needs that we have. So I have difficulties configuring how it is. You want to tell me that you will achieve these lofty goals when, as I call it, the low-hanging fruit of the basics that are required by the citizenry doesn't seem to have been fulfilled. I have a problem connecting the two. What do we need all these huge projects for if people are dying? I mean, they're meant for people, okay? So should the people not be our concern, even as we have these plans and as we put them into practice? How do we prioritize these things? Now, I cannot claim to understand the thinking of government, neither can I claim to understand the process that government uses to do these things, but I can only focus on the reality of what I'm seeing. The problems of hunger remain. The problems of banditry remain. The problem that farmers have, the problem that industrialists have with regards to having an enabling environment to do their business remains. Now, these are the cusp of government. This is something the government can do something about. They actually can. They are able to. So, would I be wrong if asking then why don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the phone lines. Just about to pick you, Robert, Marvin, John. Please call again. I think there's something that's happened to our phone lines. Just call again. Yeah. Are we just being managed by the politicians in everything that they're saying? You know, oh, this, oh, the other. Now it's a whole circus of everything else. Robert, good morning.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Salama kabisa.
Leo mimi nimefikia nyinyi kuanzia saa 12.
Musuri.
Yeah, by the way, let me tell you guys, this one is like a lecture room. Yeah, there are a lot of things people learn out of your discussions, yeah?
Very good.
And that is why we are a bit knowledgeable now than last year.
Very good. Very good.
And then the red herrings.
Exam the next month.
Exam the judge. But then how are you people?
We're very well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, there's a difference between we will and we have.
Yeah.
And then from the Dakar Summit, the Dakar 2 Summit, there's something I saw yesterday, and I think I've watched it around 8 times today in the morning again.
Yeah.
And I want you guys to listen and listen carefully from the president of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Here it is.
Thank you very much. In Zimbabwe, we have adopted basic philosophy, which is village philosophy. 1, we say a country must be ruled by the people of that country. 2, a country must be developed by the people of that country. 3, a country must eat what it kills. That is village wisdom. Now, in Zimbabwe, we have problems of food insecurity, and we said, how much food do we want per year to feed our country? We know we need about 2 million metric tons of grain. So we say, because there is climate change, how many hectares of land can we put under irrigation to produce the 2 million plus metric tons to feed the nation? And we determine how much yield does a hectare have. Once you've done that, you now know how many hectares you must put under irrigation to achieve the amount of grain you want to feed your nation in spite of climate change. That we have done, and we are now food secure.
Now that is the difference, yeah? Yeah,
we have done.
We will. No, we will. Now, in Zimbabwe, it is we have.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a difference, and that is what the president yesterday alikuwa anasema, kuna maneno na
kufanya.
Haya, asanteni sana.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. John in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, Station.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, John.
It's been ages. So, my point is this.
Yes.
We have people who sit down somewhere and they plan how to control people. Just like as the West control Africa, by making sure we are fighting with our tribesmen so that we'll never ever discuss the beauty and the minerals we have in Africa. Here in Kenya, if we look what Raila said sometimes back, Ruto will not become the president without my saying so. So these people, they are friends behind the scene. And they play us like chess. They make us busy thinking about the this they're going to do to us. And remember Mutahi Ngunyi told us, this government will keep us on perpetual drama that will never realize the promises that were made to us. As you have said, Mr. Eric, that these people talk in the middle of the night, and they understand that if at all there is no fire and there is no smoke, these Kenyans will open their eyes and understand that these people have been lying to us.
Yep.
So there have to always be a smoke and fire. So that the moment we realize that we don't have, the fuel is expensive, NHF is not working, cost of life is going up, they bring us right on the field and he starts saying the things that he'll do. And yet, when he does all those things, he never ever comes to the rescue of Kenyans when they have the real issues which need to be addressed by him and the people he controls in parliament. We can't have bills that are aimed to help Kenyans that never see the light of day, but when it comes to adding taxes on Kenyans so that we can be on perpetual poverty, so that they can be able to control us, nobody says anything. But when it's them and they want something like the way they wanted CDF, you see what they did.
Oh, yeah.
You understand?
They will stop at nothing and they will work together.
They work together. They work in concert, that you have said. I love your mind. But Kenyans are so stupid. When somebody comes when somebody comes and says, Uhuru have to pay taxes, Uhuru is a man like me. He should pay taxes.
Yeah.
What the hula baru about that?
Peleka ya kotini kama hajalipa.
Exactly. And they shouldn't even tell us, because even now, if they tell us they have paid, me and you, how will we know?
Yeah.
You get?
We don't. Thank you, John.
Something else, Mr. Eric, before I go. Our budget is only 3 trillion.
Yes.
We only produce 1.8. So we have a deficit of 1.2. We go to IMF or World Bank to go and
borrow.
Get that money from them.
Yeah.
When we come and get our 3 trillion, 80% or so goes to the current expenditure. 20% goes to development, which many a times is budgeted corruption. Tell me, when will we ever come out of debt? We'll never be.
It's a cycle.
Poverty beckons.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Peterson in Nairobi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning to you, Peterson.
And thanks a lot for the very important conversations that you usually have at SpiceFM.
Yes.
I just wish that as Kenyans we would be having these conversations daily. Probably things would be different.
Indeed.
Yeah, allow me to contribute to the conversation about the food security.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you from a personal experience that the biggest problem we have is that as a nation we never learn. I sometimes try to do farming in wheat, large scale. Sometimes I try to do maize farming. And we had crop failure for consecutive 4 years. We tried to get government support on probably doing some research on what was happening, and this extension service. They are non-existent. The government has no program on how to support farmers. When I was growing up, when I was a young boy, I grew in a farm somewhere in Mount Narok. And we really used to have extension officers who would come around the village. They would teach us how to make some of the natural manures, like compost manure, how to control pests. They would teach us about the best seedlings that we are supposed to buy, depending on the region we are on. Those things are non-existent. Our farmers have no education.
No technical support.
There is no capacity building from the government that can actually assist our farmers to be able to plant the appropriate kind of crops for their regions. And that is one of the problems we have. And that is the biggest contributor to crop failure that we have.
That's true. Thank you, Peterson.
So our biggest problem and what we need is not for the government to tell us that now they want to convert public land and start growing crops for the country there. What we need is to go back to basics. Can we have those people who have been able to be trained as extension workers? Can we employ them and send them down to the villages so that they can capacity build our farmers? Can we avail the appropriate seedlings to the appropriate areas? And we have a program on how we will be able to educate our farmers on the kind of crops they are supposed to plant. I know there are breeds like of maize that are drought resistant, that are even growing in some areas of Kajiado and in Ukambani, that require very little water, that can actually be grown and will assist these people be food secure. But the farmers have no clue about this. So the biggest problem with our food security is the problem of our country. We are a country that never learns. That is the problem.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your call. And have a lovely day. Anthony in Mombasa.
Hey, shikamo.
Marhaba.
Hey, habari ya Nairobi.
Salama.
Let me just say one thing. We are auditing government as if it is a private entity. What do I mean? For, let's say, for a government department to just purchase one thing or make a decision that we have to take of change of policy, the time that it will take from the day they have it as an idea to the day that they will actualize, that time takes it is very long.
How long?
So even if today we come with very good ideas, we put up a bill, let's say, for example, the privatization bill is passed in Parliament this year. By the time the companies that are targeted to be privatized will be talking about 3-4 years down the line.
Why?
It is government bureaucracy. Unfortunately, even if Ruto comes to whichever town and says, we will have a road here today, it is not today. It is 2-3 years ahead. But now, we will be judging them as if it is a private company which can just a manager's signature,
Yeah.
we'll be able to reallocate funds and things will move. So there are some services which I really wish for them to be privatized very fast so that these things can be done expeditiously.
Does that
Yes,
solve
we thank God. Yes,
Does
yes.
that solve the problem?
Actually,
That
yes,
if you
it
say,
will be.
hold on, it could
Yes.
it could solve a problem in the interim when you say, okay, so we need to release something and get it. But government has been instituted for a reason. The vehicle of government is supposed to guarantee certain things happen for the people of the country. That's why it's there.
Very true.
And if
Very
we are
true.
saying now that there's a bottleneck that stands in the way of this delivery to happen, and rather than insist, which is your right as a citizen of the country, that it be done right, we're saying, actually, you know what we'll do? Take that responsibility from you and give it to somebody else, as opposed to insisting, lobbying, agitating on a regular basis that this thing is done in the manner in which it ought to be done. For me, we're taking the easy route and saying, let's give it to somebody else who can actually handle it.
No, not really. Not
And
really.
I'm
Listen,
saying,
okay. Let
insist that it be done.
Let me just say this. The mobile industry, the mobile phone, came a long time, but it took some time for it to penetrate into Kenya.
That's true.
We had the telecom, we had the poster. We tried to revamp them. But imagine the day Safaricom and Kencell came into the market.
Yep.
Can you see how Kenya has changed?
Yep.
We have gone leaps and bounds. So it is not necessarily something bad. But can you imagine if something good comes, let's say KPLC gets a competitor. KPA, O&M is given to a certain company to run the port. We are talking about efficiency.
Ni sawa, lakini Anthony.
Yes. Yes.
You know, when we say these things, we assume that a government is not in perpetuity. A government is in perpetuity. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
Key things that, for example, we've seen the administration of William Ruto has been able to make a decision and get on the ground with. The Financial Inclusion Fund. From non-existence to regulations to public participation to parliamentary approval to launch.
Yes.
Okay? We have very many questions, the source of the funds, blah, blah, blah. But are people borrowing? We are being told that they have borrowed over 19 billion shillings.
Very true.
All right. So if it's possible to do that, if it's possible, for example, to say we are going to have a subsidy on fertilizer and already a few million bags of fertilizer have been distributed, why are we not talking about distributing the rest of the millions of fertilizer? That doesn't require 6 months or 3 years to implement. We're talking about those basic ones. If it's fertilizer, if it's seeds.
Yes.
And the plan was within this short time before the rainy season, farmers should have seeds, should have fertilizer, so that they can plant and should have the assistance that they're getting. That's what we're talking about.
If you can do it on one, you can do it on the other.
Yes.
And that's what we're saying.
Okay, not entirely. We can't take what happens in A will definitely happen in B.
It's not
because
the
there are different
mechanization
challenges.
of it. It's the will that lies behind the action. That if you are really, if you are resolute about getting something done, that the bureaucracy and the red tape won't matter. And that's what we're saying here. That if it is really in your interest to make sure that the livelihoods of the people of Kenya are secured in food, in health, in whatever, that you will cut the red tape and do it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but you are showing that you have the will to actually get it done.
But what we call red tape is law. What we call bureaucracy is law. So if tomorrow Ruto decides, let's put aside law and address the problems we have today, believe me, the anarchy that will happen is...
I know we're running out of time, but let me give you a beautiful example. NGCDF was not considered law, right? The court said we're stopping this thing. count the weeks that it took to get the thing, and 4 billion
funds are
shillings
out
already
there.
moved. 4 billion shillings already moved to the counties. Why? Because members of parliament said, all these things that you want us to do, we are not going to do. But it was important for them to get those funds to the counties, and they got it done. Why do you think they got it done? Why?
Counties are
And
devolved.
we're talking about something that was entrenched in what? In law.
No. But counties are already devolved in law. Counties
The
are
court
devolved in law.
declared it
NGCDFC
unlawful.
account is Antonio
Come
constituency bana.
Lakini imeenda wapi?
Imeenda
Iko kwa account ya nani?
iko kwa account ya constituency.
Constituencies have received 4 billion as we speak.
Anthony, thank you for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you
good
very
one.
much.
Thank you. Always
You
good to
too.
engage. And thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. NASA says, regarding action, I agree we are slow on implementation, but 5 months for a new government is a very short time. You judge a government performance over a minimum of 4 to 5 year period.
No, you judge the government on whether its people are eating every day.
So tuongee mambo ya chipkati, mambo ya nini, mambo ya watu walipe ushuru for 4 or 5 years. Hapana bana. People, see you tomorrow. Thank you.